Guys, welcome back to the Fitness for Life podcast. I'm your host, Jackson Lohr. Today, I have with me my friend John. I'm not going to try and pronounce his last name. He will do that for you. But John is coming out of Barrie, Ontario. He's been training clients for almost 10 years. And so, John, thank you for coming on the show.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me. And I don't blame you for not attempting that last name, although it's been butchered my entire life. So if you also butchered it, I wouldn't care. It's just one of those things. I'm gonna get into a little bit of me.
Yeah. So typically how I start things out is just give us a little intro into, how did you first get into training? Give us kind of your story that got you to where you're at now, because I think it's valuable for people to hear like, hey, not everybody had the same start, even within the fitness industry. So please.
For sure. I love it. Yeah. I mean, I kind of told myself as being an outlier in the industry. I mean, I'm 34 right now, but I didn't, I didn't go to college right out of high school for this. I was a fat teenager, insecure, anxious, overweight. I played a lot of hockey growing up, and part of my problem was I was slow. Right, I was a big dude, but I was slow. I needed to lose weight. I needed help doing that. So from early teenage years to about my early 20s, just got a bunch of different help from different trainers, coaches, other athletes on developing my hockey game in general, but also like dietary things in the gym to lose some body fat, perform better on the ice and things like that. And it wasn't until probably my mid 20s where, I helped my brother lose a whole bunch of weight. Two of my best friends, we would all go to the gym together, but I was kind of like the leader, the guy that would watch the videos and read about fitness and dieting and what we were doing wrong and training programs and stuff like that. And it was pretty rewarding just to see how we were doing things. And my job at the time, I worked in the food catering side of where the Toronto Blue Jays play.
Yeah.
So any given night when we were there on home games, I'd talk to anywhere from 20 to 60 different people. Right. And
Yeah.
I was that guy that brought his dinners or his lunches, and people would be asking me like, what are you eating? Why are you eating that? But then I'd also be the guy that would eat the cookies, or if there was cake left over and different things. And people would be very confused. And this to me was probably the turning point, because I'd gotten pretty lean, and I was showcasing different sides of eating clean, quote unquote, is what people would assume I was doing, but also having cookies and cake. And everyone was confused as to what was happening and why I was allowed to do that. So flexible eating, and back then it was more termed if it fits your macros, was huge. And I think being able to teach people that they don't have to be on a strict diet, they don't have to, every summer they're like, oh, I gotta do all this cardio, like being able to help people not do all the things that we used to think we had to do to lose weight was huge for me. And it wasn't until this one day where one of the hostesses, the woman I worked with, she was like, when the season's over, I want you to train me. And I had a moment in my head, you ever seen those movies or shows where it like pauses the world around you and you're like talking to yourself? That's what it felt like. Cause I was just like, oh shit, like this is real now. And all I said was, sure, let's talk after the season's done. And that was 2016, and Strong John Fitness was born then.
Nice.
It's been a ride, but I was the overweight fat kid. I have not been that coach who's been in shape his whole life or anything like that. Yeah. Fitness kind of fell into my lap in a sense. But I've enjoyed it. I love helping people reframe how they approach food, how they approach training. It did wonders for me, so now I'm grateful to be able to do it for others.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that.
Thanks.
And I think it flows right into, what we had talked about as a topic for the show, which is like understanding balance understanding why like balance and preparation, things that you were practicing there, how that can benefit you in the long run and your success if you're trying to lose weight, or if whatever goal you're trying to achieve in terms of your weight or your weight management. So one of the things you recently posted on was, hey, if you're really struggling with your goals, a little bit of weekend prep can be really helpful. Talk me through like hey, what does that matter? And what does that look like?
Yeah, I love it. I mean, the term meal prep sometimes gets a bad rap, right? I
Yeah.
think depending on, your background into fitness and things, you hear meal
Right.
prep and you think bodybuilders or eating the same thing every day and just hating food in general. And I think that's something that we have to take that back a little bit, right? Because meal prep can be
Yes.
can be anything, right? I have a colleague of mine I just shared on her feed the other day was she cooked, I think one big pack of chicken, but seasoned it 3 different ways.
Yeah. Hmm.
Sounds awesome. That's meal prep. So for me, is more okay. The quintessential meal prep day is Sunday because everyone's preparing for the week. But what happens is people don't prep for 5 lunches and 5 dinners, or they don't prep all the way till Friday.
No.
Sometimes they'll get to Wednesday, sometimes they'll get to Thursday. And I ran into this quite a few times where, Tuesday, Wednesday was heavy work days. Thursday came around. I had no protein prepped. I was like, I got to eat something. I
Right.
got to order something. I have to eat. So that weekend meal prep idea is more, generally speaking, people who want to lose weight have an easier time Monday through Friday for the most part because it's pretty routine. It's pretty standard.
Yep.
Work hours are the same, lunch hours are the same, things like that, dinners, kids' schedules, all that. Saturday, Sunday, for a lot of parents, things get flipped on their heads, right? There's
Yeah.
either uncertainty if we don't have plans, and if we don't have plans, we don't know what we're eating, or we're going out to eat, or it's just kind of like the routine goes completely out the window, and all the work they put in Monday through Friday kind of just is moot at that point.
Yeah.
So the weekend meal prep idea came from working with a few clients who it's a pattern. Like every Saturday, Sunday, they had a hard time and it came down to like, they just didn't have protein ready. Cause I
Right.
think honestly, that's more than half the battle. From a price perspective, protein is the most expensive grocery I think we'll buy. And
Yeah.
B, it's like, if you're eating protein, you're way less likely to eat the other super palatable, highly processed takeout foods, right? Not that you're not allowed to have them, but if you set that foundation Monday through Thursday, Monday through Friday afternoon of high protein meals, pretty consistent, the best thing you can do is have high protein meals leading into the weekend.
Yeah.
So that mini meal prep is legit, whether it's Thursday or Friday. It's like looking at, okay, well, what do we have coming up Friday, Saturday, Sunday for lunches, dinners, whatever? Do I have any food ready? Do I have any
Yeah.
protein just prep for myself, whether it's extra lean ground beef, chicken breast, ground turkey? Eggs are a staple. I think eggs are so easy, and we can get into whole eggs and egg whites and portions and stuff like that. But it's just
Yeah.
preparation really takes a lot of the guesswork out. And that's the other side of the coin with parents. Those Thursday nights where I was just gassed out, like I could have probably cooked something, but my mental capacity was maxed, and that bled
Right.
into Friday. And then I was like, okay, well, it's the weekend. So what are we ordering? It wasn't,
Right.
what am I cooking for dinner? So what are we ordering? So reducing the mental load of, okay, cool. I know I have protein ready for the next couple of meals. I can mix them up, make them whatever I want to. I'm good. I don't have to worry about falling off track because it's Saturday, because it's Friday night. Is that still semblance of, I'm in a routine, I'm getting my protein in, and that just bleeds into everything, controlling the cravings and just keeping you feeling good about your process too. Because if Friday night comes and you order out and you're like, I shouldn't have eaten all that, and then Saturdays comes and then, well, I overate on Friday, so let's just screw it, let's just eat whatever, and then it just bleeds, right? So
Yeah.
it tackles so many things at once that I think people overlook because they just, you hear meal prep and you're like, okay, I have to eat chicken, rice, and broccoli again. And you and I both know it doesn't have to be that way either.
Exactly. Yeah. I think even taking it a step further, like one of the things that I often encourage my clients to do is just protein prep. Like literally, like you said, that tends to be the biggest thing is people in general don't eat enough protein. If they know how much they need to eat, oftentimes they, like you said, they get to the end of the week or they get to the end of the week, they don't have protein prepped. And now it's like, okay, that tends to be a little bit more time consuming than, just, getting your fruits, your veggies, or, whatever easy carbs are out there for you. And so one of the things that I'll say is like, okay, listen, you don't even have to take it so far as like a meal prep. Cause I know with what you order or with what you got at the grocery store, you can find some carbs, you can find some, a vegetable, maybe a fruit what is going to take you a little longer is just the protein. So we'll take it even a step further and be like, okay, or even not even a step further, but a step back and say like, hey, just from an ingredient prep standpoint, can we get something that's going to have a good source of protein for you? And can we get it ready so that it's super quick, pop it in the microwave or whatever, and you're ready to go. And so that's, something that I think is really valuable for people to hear. And, if we're going to what you said in your post, like you said, you don't necessarily need to have every single meal prepped to a T. It's just having something ready so that you're not falling back on what's easiest. So that becomes the thing that's what's easiest, right?
Yeah. Well, and what's easiest, if people are in a weight loss journey, what's easiest got them to where they are when it comes to
Right.
unwanted body fat, right? Like what's easiest for me would be to order pizza. I mean, that's a food I could eat every single day, twice a day, no problem. And one thing it's funny we did, because not that we involve the kids in the meal prep, but they roughly know kind of the meal schedule of the house, which I find holds us accountable too. It's like, well, I thought it was egg night, right? So if they're expecting, a 3-year-old and a 7-year-old are pretty disciplined. It's like, if I'm having eggs tonight, like, I better see eggs on my plate. We would do like pizza Fridays, but for me, it was more, okay, well, there's really no real protein sources on a pizza, right? We're getting a little bit of pepperoni or bacon or chicken, if anything, but the fat content heavily outweighs any of the protein content. So what I would do is I would pair, probably 2 slices of pizza or so with a nice fat piece of meat, like a nice big steak or big chicken breast or chicken thighs. So I'm having fun with the pizza, but I'm also having a ton of protein, and then I'm just full. So I'm satisfied because if it's the pizza craving, cool. But then I'm also making sure, hey, I'm getting a lot of protein with this meal, and it's kind of just a double win.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and so I definitely think it's worth exploring. One of the things I talk with my clients about is like, listen, like, yes, like calories are calories, and if you're trying to lose weight, it is to some degree like you have to follow the calories in, calories out rule, to some degree, or to, if you want to lose that weight. But that doesn't mean each calorie is the same. It doesn't mean all foods are the same, in terms of satisfaction, in terms of the nutrient density. We talk about, one of the examples I like to use is like, hey, ground beef and a sirloin are very different things, and they should be treated as such. And so one of the things, can you talk through for me how you work with your clients on like, hey, this is how you understand the quality of what you're putting in your mouth?
I love that. Yeah. Well, I mean, one of those things too, it's like people see, me talk about donuts, the donut in my logo, and like, oh, you must eat donuts all the time. And honestly, I don't. Right. The thing with donuts is, in anything in that category, it's fun, but you can't necessarily build a lean body just eating that. You're gonna feel terrible, right? Like I've National Donut Days in a couple months. Like I'm gonna eat too many of them. I'm cool with that. Would I eat like that every day? Absolutely not, because I'll just feel terrible. Same thing, like I said about I can eat pizza, every day, twice a day. I wouldn't feel good. So it's one of those things when it comes to food. With my clients, the first thing I do is I want to see how they eat first. Like, I need to learn their patterns and their meal choices and kind of how many meals a day they're eating. But it's a heavy emphasis on lean proteins, and it's just getting them to think of protein all the time, in a sense.
Yeah.
But in your house, you should stock up eggs, egg whites, non-fat Greek yogurt's a great staple to have. Tuna cans.
Yep.
My fellow Americans have canned chicken. For us in Canada, I've never heard that before. I had some of my clients be like, yeah, canned chicken. I was like, what are you talking about right now? What are we saying? So canned chicken, I guess, I'm assuming it's lean, but things like that, you should have staple foods that you can keep, right? Eggs keep for, over a month, stuff like that. And then, I mean, the other thing I'll talk about probably more so now that the weather's heating up is barbecue season, right? People think barbecue, people think protein, but what are we getting? What are we talking about here? Because if you're talking your store-bought, we'll go store-bought because it's average. Store-bought burgers, hot dogs, sausages, right? My mouth's watering too, but one thing people miss out on is not just because it's a burger, it's high in protein. Because if I go to the store right now and go to the boxes and the nutrition facts, most of those burgers have more calories from fat than calories from protein. And that's one thing I think not many people understand is like not all burgers are created equal. Hot dogs are one of those foods that I'm like, I'll pick and choose when I eat them because there's next to no protein, unless you're eating turkey hot dogs or chicken hot dogs, in which case it's not a real hot dog. It's fat, and sausage is kind of the same, right? So these fattier cuts of meat have their time and place for sure. But if you're the type of family, if you're like me, like I'll try to barbecue as much as I can, 2-3 times a week at least when the weather's nice. Make sure you're looking at the nutrition label for the meats, because yes, you're having burgers and yes, there's a good amount of protein, but if that label says 20 grams of protein and 30 grams of fat, you're getting more calories from fat, and it's kind of doing you a disservice, especially if you're trying to maintain your weight or manage your weight and lose weight over the course of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think so. Do a little bit of calorie math for people while we're on here. If you haven't seen a few episodes, I've done some of this before. Probably a dozen episodes ago or so. But for those listening, when you have a gram of a gram of fat versus a gram of protein, like a gram of fat is going to be 9 calories from that gram, no matter what it is. And then a gram of protein is going to be 4 calories. So you can have slightly less than half of the grams be from fat, and it's versus the protein, and it still be equal in the calorie distribution. So what John's getting at is absolutely true. Like you can see, it's, X percent, lean, whether it's 60, 70%, and it still be the calorie distribution still be almost equal. And so now you're like, okay, this is a little different here.
Yeah, in that burger example, I think that puts us, 30 grams of fat puts us at 270 calories from fat. Yeah. And then the protein, if it's 20 grams of protein, that puts us at 80 grams of protein, or 80 calories of protein.
Right.
So 270 and 80 is a big difference in terms of fat to protein ratio.
So that's just a great example of like, okay, what I'm putting in my body, all things are not equivalent just because it's a protein source or just because it's considered a protein source. When in reality, I think even taking it a step further, like, and I'm going to speak from, I'm sure things are slightly different in Canada. I'm going to speak from, the States, where you can call something high protein, a high protein source on a food label if it has 5 grams of protein. Which
I think it's the same here. It's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah. 5 grams of protein, that's 20 calories coming from protein during the day. And that's insane. That's such a small amount of protein if you're thinking about how that, works into your overall intake for the day. Most of my clients, they're shocked when I tell them you need to get more than 100 grams of protein in a day. I've got people out here who are like, oh yeah, no, I got my 40 grams of protein for the day. It's like, we need to have a conversation about your bone health first, and and then go from there. But
yeah, it's super common. That's probably one of the most common things of anyone I've worked with is low protein, right? And to no fault of their own necessarily. I think it's generational. It's what we're taught, right? Don't get me started on like Canada's food guide and all that stuff. Like there's so much misinformation and misdirection, I think, when it comes to protein. And it's hard sometimes to get someone like, hey, if you're averaging 40 grams a day, I'm not going to expect 100 right out the gate, but we got to build up to it, right? Whether it comes from protein shakes to help assist with that, honestly, bigger portions of what you're already cooking is usually the starting point. Right? If you're already cooking a pack of chicken thighs for the family, your budget will go up for food a little bit, but you got to cook 2 packs of chicken thighs so you all get some more protein. Like things like that. You don't necessarily
Yeah.
have to do extra work in that sense. It's just cook a little bit more to start.
Yeah, I think that is one of the easiest ways for most people to increase their intake, right? It's just like, hey, whatever your source is, just double it, or not even double it for some people, just increase it. Eat a little bit more. If you're eating a steak, if you're eating a steak at night, you're probably already pretty close to hitting your goals. If that's a main source of your nutrition for the day, but look at the rest of the day. Okay, maybe I need a steak and a half. All right. Yeah, so that's just something that drives me a little bit nuts. But while we're kind of still on the nutrition train, one of the things I have really looked at that I think is worth hearing about is just talk about like majoring in the minors or really getting caught up in the details, right? A lot of people tend to focus on, can I take this supplement for, my greens powder, or make sure I get all my vitamins in. And I'm like, okay, when's the last time we've eaten a vegetable with more than one meal in a day? Like, is that a part of our regular routine? So when you're talking to clients and you're helping them build, their choices for their foods, what does that conversation look like for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to it, again, I have to get their patterns first. I got to see. I can't arbitrarily tell people they have to eat certain foods, right? There's obviously a list of things that we suggest, but when it comes to working with clients, it's always going to be custom to, if some clients don't eat breakfast, okay, well, where are we going to get the protein from? What are we eating? Right? Just really working with them and where they're at. When it comes to supplements, it's a very short list, right? I mean, the amount of people I've talked out of pre-workout just because I don't want them to end up like me. A caffeine addict, a proud one, but still, the supplements list, greens powders, multivitamins, things like that become, they make you feel good because it makes it feel like you're doing something for your health, which the data is kind of up in the air a little bit for that. But I would argue absolutely, especially if you have a weight loss goal, you're going to see way more benefit eating vegetables and sneaking them into your shakes and doing other things with veggies rather than putting them in a powder. Powders are convenient. I get it for sure. But there's the satiety effect of chewing food, right? The nutrients you get from eating the vegetables and things like that. It's different, right? A greens powder, again, they're expensive as one. Groceries are expensive too. Don't get me wrong, but you're better off, I think, spending the money in the grocery store rather than a supplement tub that you may or may not finish. I'm guilty of that too. I had a greens tub. I think it's still probably in my cupboard somewhere. It's one of those things. Multivitamin, it's like an insurance marker, right? It's not going to do anything that you're going to notice, but it just feels good to have one just in case, right? But I think, you should always focus on your quality of food. Lean, like foods that once had a face, foods that came out of the ground. Shout out to Eric Bach for that one, because once I heard that analogy, I was like, that's very clear as to where I need to shop for food. And if you build most of your diet with that, add in some whole grains, you're golden, right? That's how you have to build it out. If most of your diet comes from prepackaged, ultra processed, not that these things are going to be super detrimental, but you're not putting yourself in a place of optimal health and longevity. And with processed foods and weight loss, it's a whole nother ordeal of just digestion and rate of digestion. I can tell you the last time I ate a protein bar, right? My coach, shout out to Alan Bacon from a couple of years ago, he was basically like, dude, you're not allowed to eat protein bars at home. It's an emergency food. And he was right. And I'm going on a tangent, but protein bars are one of those things that if I'm home, I really have no reason to eat a protein bar. I can eat a meal. I can cook.
Yeah.
Right. What am I? Because the protein bars, they taste great and they're fun, but I'm still hungry. So what am I really doing? So it's like food choices. Yeah, for sure. It's if anyone's listening and they do grocery shopping for their family, If you want to incorporate your partner or your spouse or your kids, you can. But it's really take a look at what are some of the foods that you actually enjoy. Start with those always. Start with proteins that you like, veggies that you like, if there are any, fruits that you like, whole grains, and you can
Yeah.
kind of build out the menu from there. I think we just make things so much more complicated than they need to be, just from the pure amount of options that are available.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, that's my 2 cents on it anyway.
I love it. And I think that, that kind of wraps up nicely our conversation on like quality nutrition and gives people a nice place to go from there, right? Yeah, love the concept of, hey, if it had a face or came out of the ground, it's probably, good, something good to eat. So, John, I think that's probably a good place to wrap up. Where can people find you if they're looking for, more tips, more stuff, or just looking to see your face some more?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I don't know how much of my face they want to see, but Strong John Fitness on Instagram. There's no H in the name John. I'm one of the weird ones. And strongjohnfitness.com. Those are probably the two easiest. I also have my own podcast, the Strong John Fitness podcast, and that trifecta right there, you'll get me one way or another.
Awesome, John. Appreciate you coming on. And for the folks listening, hope you guys will implement some of this, and we'll see you next time.